Hey everybody, welcome to the House of Phi. We're going to be doing a bit of a different video today about my experience with a previous weight loss surgery. About 10 years ago, I had the lap band surgery, and without being too dramatic and super extra, it almost killed me. It really was a scary situation. It was painful. I did have some success initially with it, but it ended up being a failure. I ended up being a failed lap band surgery person. And so what we're going to talk about in this video is what I think went wrong, kind of my history and my decision to initially decide to do the lap band surgery 10 years ago, and why I have decided that I am going to undergo a second surgery. So stay tuned for about 6 seconds and we'll be right back. Hey everyone, welcome back to the House of Phi, and if you're new here, welcome to our house. I am Wendy, and I am one half of the House of Phi podcast. Normally on this channel, we talk about saving money, building wealth, getting rid of debt, all on the road to financial independence. And one thing I have found to be true in my life, at least, is that our money is inextricably tied to not just what we eat, but our mental health. And for me, all three of those things are tied very, very closely together. And so I think that sharing my journey and my decision of why I'm going to do a second weight loss surgery is something that is appropriate for this channel. And I hope to find that some of you out there who maybe came just for the weight loss portion of this and the surgery portion of it, stick around and get some benefit from the financial side of it as well. So first, let's go into a little bit of my backstory. I would classify myself as a food addict. It's not something that I'm proud of, and it's definitely something I would say that I have to this day not gained any sort of real control over. I can recall the first time in my life where I ever said the words in my head, "You're so fat." And that was when I was in the 3rd grade, and I was looking at a picture of myself in a yellow terry cloth dress that my mom had made. And I was super in love with the dress, but then I saw myself in it, and it was just devastating. I didn't like what I saw. And that was probably the first time that I can remember saying negative things about my body. And then from there, it just really grew into being obsessed with what I look like, lacking a lot of self-confidence, and then that eventually grew into an investigating about eating disorders and what they were, and I ended up partaking in some of those behaviors. I was more bulimic than anything else, but I also did abuse diet pills, and there were some anorexic tendencies in there as well. I never sought treatment for that disorder, but I do think that I at least grew out of those behaviors, but not really until college. It was something that was present off and on in my life up until that point. But what remained, aside from the binging and the purging and all of that, what remained for me was this emotional attachment to food and what it the way that it made me feel, sometimes being out of control with it, and sometimes it was a means of control. So just the relationship with food was a love-hate thing, and probably still is to some extent my whole life. Now, for those of you out there who would like to offer some unsolicited advice to me about magical pills, wraps, supplements, and workout routines and diets, let me just assure you that I have tried every single one of those things. I have been successful at times and done really, really well, and done well for years, as a matter of fact. But ultimately, for me, I always seem to revert back to some old bad behaviors. And I think a lot of it is behavior, but I also do think that a lot of it is genetic, that my body does want to, it is harder for me to lose weight and keep it off. So I want to backtrack now and talk a little bit about the decision back in 2010 to get the surgery and kind of what went wrong. At that time, again, I was still practicing criminal law. I had a successful practice. I was making a lot of money. At the time, we had not yet adopted all of our boys. We only had Jacob at that time, so I had 3 children at that time. We were still living in Phoenix, Arizona, and our life was pretty status quo. There wasn't really anything super stressful going on. I did feel some initial onset of burnout, but I still felt that I was going to stay in my practice for a long, long time. I at least felt that I was going to continue for at least another 10 years. And so I decided that I was going to get the weight loss surgery, and initially it went really, really well. I lost quite a bit of weight fairly quickly. But eventually what I found was I would plateau, and when I would plateau, I would go into the doctor and ask her to fill the band up just a little bit to restrict my eating more. And so if you're not clear of what the lap band is, it's essentially a ring that is placed around the top of your stomach, and it creates a little pouch where your food goes, and it keeps a hole there for food to flow through, but it restricts how much food can go through at any given time. And so what it does is it gives you the feeling of fullness very, very quickly, and once you're full, you're supposed to stop eating. It has some diet restrictions, things you're not supposed to eat, and also you're supposed to chew your food very, very well, and all of that. So I had these plateaus, and each time I would have a plateau, I would talk to my doctor. She would suggest that we fill it with a little bit more fluid to create more restriction, and we did that for quite a while. But then what started happening is I would get this sensation of food feeling like it was stuck and that it couldn't go down, and it was super, super painful. So I would talk to her about it, and she would let more out, but it really wouldn't solve the issue. I still felt like I couldn't eat, and it got really, really bad. It got to the point where I couldn't even keep a tablespoon of water down. Now I want to pause the story here and kind of just talk about, you know, where my brain was at during this time. My brain was at a place where I had lost almost 80 pounds. I was down under 200 pounds, so I was super happy with my progress, and I didn't want to do anything that was going to stop my progress. And so I was very, very hesitant to talk to my doctor about the pain that I was having, and I felt that if I just dealt with it, that eventually it would get better, and that I just had to deal with it. So at the time, I was in trial. As a criminal defense attorney, I had a very, very heavy trial schedule. I was in court almost every day, and I had a trial, and my pain was so significant that in the middle of the trial, I stopped the trial and I ran out of the courtroom and I had to vomit. And that's gross, but it just kind of talks to the psychology of what was going on in my mind, that I was in so much pain and so much discomfort that I thought I could continue working and go to court and do these trials when this thing I had put in my body was causing me so much pain. I continued on. I finished the trial, and then I got to a point where I was still sick. I wasn't getting any better. The doctor had taken out as much fill as she could, so that all that was left was the actual ring, and I was still having extreme pain and discomfort, and I couldn't eat and I couldn't drink. But again, in my mind, I did not want to fail, and I did not want to admit that this was something that I couldn't fix. And so in my mind, I thought all I really needed was some hydration. And so the turning point was another day where I knew that I had to be in court. I had to be in court in the afternoon, and so the morning I rested, and then I got ready for court. I'm in my pantsuit, I'm dressed, I have my makeup on, I have my heels, and in my mind I thought all I need to do is go to the hospital and get some hydration and I'll be in court by 1 o'clock. That's what was going on in my mind. I got to the hospital and they took my vitals immediately, and during the course of them taking my vitals, my body lost control of itself. And I remember, hope you can see this, my hands went into this sort of position, and there was nothing I could do to make them not do that, and they just kind of stuck there, and it was super freaky, freaked me out. They continued to take my vitals and they ended up taking me to the back. Now in my mind I'm still thinking, I just need the fluids, they're gonna take me back and put me on an IV, I'll get the fluids, I'll be fine, I can put my suit back on, and I'm gonna go to court. The doctor eventually came in, and I let him know that I was on a time constraint and that this needed to hurry up because I needed to get to court by 1 o'clock. And I was shocked to find out that I was not leaving the hospital that day. To kind of bring the story to closure, I ended up staying in the hospital for 4 days. It took them 4 days not only to get my body hydrated, but to fill it with nutrients that it needed, where they felt comfortable releasing me for the weekend. They could not take the band out. And at that point, I was in a place and in so much pain where I just wanted it out. But I had to talk to my surgeon to do that, and she couldn't get me into that following Monday. So they discharged me on a Friday. Over the weekend, I suffered at home. My niece describes that time on that weekend. She said I looked like death. My skin was gray, and that I was very hollow. And there was a lot of concern about my well-being that weekend. That Monday, I went in, I got the surgery, I got it out, and I immediately felt better, 100% better immediately. And I remember going to get a hamburger on the way home, but I don't think that happened. I think in my mind that happened. But I was still really heavily medicated, so I don't really think that happened. But I immediately wanted food, and so after that failure of having the surgery and losing so much weight, which in my mind was successful, it was really difficult. And in my I promised myself that I wasn't going to gain the weight back, and I gained some back really, really quickly, and then I would plateau and I would stay at a place for a really long time, and then I would gain some more and I would plateau, and I'd think, okay, I'm not going to go over this weight, and then I would gain some more weight, and then I would plateau, and I make another promise to myself. And in between there were other diets and weight loss plans that happened, and they just weren't successful. I would lose weight and I would gain it back. I was back on the same cycle that I had been my whole life. So why do I think my surgery was a failure? My surgery was a failure because, if I'm being 100% honest, I was cheating the rules. It's not that I was eating anything particularly bad, but I definitely wasn't chewing my food as much as I should have. And I was also pushing it and trying to eat things that I knew I shouldn't be eating, that would cause irritation and issues with the lap band. So the lap band for me wasn't a failure because of the lap band surgery itself. It was a failure because I did things that I think jeopardized the placement of the band, and the taking in and out of fluids so many times, I think, put it in a position that it slipped. And once it slips, that's when you have that pain. And so again, I don't think that it was a lap band failure as much it was my decisions. And if you hear that barking, that's my dog who's on the floor having a doggy nightmare. All right, so fast forward to 2016. So it's about 4 years ago. In 2016, that was a hard year. I had already decided that I was going to be closing my practice. I was in some extreme burnout. We had adopted 3 more boys, so our family went from, 2 children to 6 children in a very short period of time. About 24 months altogether, but in 2016, by then all of the adoptions were final. So our family had exploded. We had moved to California. I was commuting back and forth. We were in $1 million worth of debt. And it was during this time that my mother was starting to get very, very sick. And but I still had a want to be healthy and to lose weight, and so I did work out, and I ate very, very healthy. And in that journey with me was one of my very best friends from law school. I didn't think I was going to get emotional. So for the next 2 years, one of my very best friends, Erica and I, we started working out. We went to this place called the Camp. She lost so much weight and was always an inspiration for me. We would go work out all the time. We would eat well. We would walk together and talk together about life, about our progress. And we did really, really well. We all did really, really well. It was like one of the really good, like, stress relieving times in my life. And I think had not these stressors that occurred after that happened, that maybe I wouldn't be sitting here right now talking about contemplating surgery again. So I forget the exact time, but about 2 years after that, Erica was diagnosed. She was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And we thought for a long time that she was going to make it. She had had a surgery. She had been doing well. She had tried to work out as long as she could during that whole time until it just became too much for her. Unfortunately, she passed away, and there was a 3-week time frame where I lost both my mom and I lost Erica, and I just fell into just a really dark time. And so working out and eating well just really wasn't in the forefront of my mind at that time. And I have tried since then to get back on the wagon. And there were some other things happening in our lives that added to those stressors. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety around the same time as well, and which I'm feeling very much better about. I'm medicated and working with my doctor, so I'm feeling better. So all of this is to say that I just came to a place in my life where I'm 49 years old. I've had a lifetime of trying to do better with my weight and exercising and being healthy, and I don't feel like I have the strength or the mental wherewithal to do it all by myself again. And so because of that, I have opted for surgery. Now I know that I still have to have some behavior changes, that this surgery is only a tool, and I believe that 100%. I just need the extra push to get there. I think that once that happens, I really will be able to channel my love and my friendship, and that will help me be successful. God, I didn't mean for this to be emotional at all. I don't know where that came from. But anyways, here we are. I have decided that I'm going to get a second surgery. I have not decided yet whether I'm going to get the sleeve or the gastric bypass, but I'm very close. I have been approved for the surgery. I've taken the classes, I've done all the labs, I've had all my doctor's appointments. All that's left is for me to meet with my surgeon, which should probably happen in the next week or two, and then schedule the surgery. So I expect that this will happen in the next month or so. And so my purpose in sharing this video is to share it to others who might be contemplating weight loss surgery, that identify with the same struggles as I have, or if you're already on this journey, that we can support one another. And if along the way you learn some things about finances and getting your financial house in order, and being interested in financial independence, I hope you watch those videos too. All right, guys, super embarrassed to have broken down like that, but I'm still so glad you were here, and I hope that you come back next week, next time for another video. And if you haven't already, please remember to like and subscribe. It helps support this channel and lets YouTube know that it's helpful in getting it out there to other people who might need this information. All right, guys, well, thanks for coming. Take care. Bye.